Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we are taking a look at an absolutely wonderful game played by Leela-Berserk against Berserk in the TCEC Season 23 chess bonus. What was the chess bonus? It seems so long ago now. It was a bonus in which the three top engines, Stockfish, Leela-Berserk and Komodo Dragon, took on all of the other engines from the starting position. Now the top engines consider the starting position to be fairly level, but well, despite that they managed to score quite a few wins against some very strong engines, and well, Berserk is one of the best, and well, Leela-Berserk certainly showed how to play the white side of the French. Let's have a little look at the game. So the game started 1 e4. That's this current version's Leela's favourite opening move, and Berserk played 1 e6. Some engines were going for 1 e5 and often the Berlin, but there were quite a smattering of engines that liked the French, and when they did, well, knight c3 by far the most popular line of all the engines. I don't know of any other engines that play knight d2 anymore. That used to be the most popular move from engines, but not anymore. I think Komodo Dragon played 3 e5 once, but knight c3 is the big one, and knight f6 from black. So the winner were not at all popular for black. Always the Steinitz. And I mean, I think that's fair enough. I think at the elite level, it was also kind of the conclusion as well that the Steinitz was the most solid French, and that the winner was a little bit dodgy. But e5, knight fd7, f4, c5, knight f3, and now a very interesting moment actually. Now, if you let the top engines run on the starting position, well, you've seen this quite a bit in the opening series that I did for Leela, for Stockfish, and for Komodo Dragon. Then they all want to go for this line, knight c6. Well, what we get bishop e3, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and then queen b6. And well, I mean, there is masses and masses of analysis on there, so I'll just show you some of the games, because there's something quite interesting that happened recently. Knight takes d4, bishop d4, a6, takes, rook b3, queen e7, rook takes b7. And I mean, really intuitively, you might easily think that white must be considerably better. I mean, we've got very nice outpost on d4 for the white bishop. We've also got a rook on the 7th, of course. We've got some extra space, and possibilities of attack with f5, because the pawn on d5 is attacked. Maybe we can just castle and bring the other rook round to b1. I mean, really, this looks so good, and yet it seems to be absolutely fine for black, and in multiple ways as well. There was one game in this chess bonus where black tried Agderstein's idea. Simon Agderstein was, I guess, the player who really brought this to the top level. He played a number of games in a Super Gem tournament a number of years ago, and got very good results. But this was what he played against Sergei Karyakin, and in this chess bonus, then this ended up getting refuted somehow. So this is a little bit too risky, but what Stockfish likes is queen d8, castles, and then queen c8, which is quite interesting, the idea being that after rook b1, bishop c5. Now, I mentioned this because actually there was a game played in the British Championships between Lanyao and Peter Finn that followed all of Stockfish's main analysis. So it was f5, bishop b5, knight takes b5, a b5. So giving up this light squared bishop, I mean, really to inconvenience this rook, get it off the 7th rank, and we take, and we go castles. And well, the idea is black is a pawn down, but yeah, I mean, these extra pawns on a2 and on c2 are quite difficult to defend and easy to attack for black's major pieces. Yeah, I mean, rook 1 b2 is both this is Dragon's main line against Stockfish, and well, that just led to a fairly trivial draw. Actually, in the game at the British Championship, I was commentating on it at the time, and it carried on rook c5, queen a6, f6, which I think, to be honest, this is the line that's most difficult for a human player to defend. Queen takes a2, rook f1, rook fc8. Now a very nice move, queen e3. The idea being that you just want to go something like queen g5. So, for example, if you go rook c5, you don't go queen c5 when we could go queen a7. You go, you just go queen g5, and you're going to deliver mate g6 and queen h6. And the reason to do this in this way is if you go queen a7 first, hoping to pin, and then queen g5, I could go check and queen f8. Well, instead of queen g5, I can just go rook takes c8 check, which wins. So plenty of traps in this line, and I think, again, I think this was quite a good example of the fact that these engine lines are often perfectly good for one side, but they are quite tough to reproduce over the board. So g takes f6, e takes f6, king h8, queen h6. Rook g8, rook c7, and now actually something happened which I'd predicted. You can check that commentary if you like. It's on the ECF website. But I thought that rook f8 would probably be fine for black, and actually the engines say this is complete equality. But black unfortunately blundered with rook a7 when after rook c8 was terminal, because if you do something like rook a8, then there's the gorgeous queen g7 checkmate. Lovely, isn't it? So. Yeah, so that was quite an interesting example I found, obviously because I was commentating on it live, but also an example of how difficult it can be to play engine lines, even when you get quite a long way. I don't know how far black got, but yeah, seen a lot of Peter's games, and I know that he's very well prepared, so it wouldn't surprise me if he knew quite a bit of that. So of course, why am I showing this to you? Well, the point is that knight takes d4, knight c6 would just transpose back into that line, and Leela thinks that this is actually quite okay for black. So that explains why Leela played the move knight b5. I mean, basically taking any opportunity that it thinks is promising to avoid that drawn main line. And this is a very good move, actually. C takes d4 hasn't been played very much by black. Knight b5 hasn't been played at all very much, but yeah, I think it's a very good move. So yeah, I mean, what's known, knight c6 has been played. Bishop b4 check has also been played. I saw that actually in my Hierarchs chess database, which yeah, is unbelievably complete. I can definitely recommend it as an opening tool. Definitely a lot of stuff in there that you don't find anywhere else. But actually, Berserk played essentially a novelty, I think. Queen a5 check, bishop d2, queen b6, and this is a really sharp attempt to exploit this white move order, because after knight d4, knight c6, c3, then Berserk played queen takes b2. By the way, if instead of queen takes b2, if black plays bishop c5, which looks quite interesting, hitting this this knight on d4, then we can simply go bishop c1, protect this pawn on b2, and yeah, Stockfish gives it 0.98, which is pretty good. I mean, basically, it's a pretty nice French where white's got occupation of the d4 square solid center, and yeah, I mean, yeah, black's still got to get developed. It's not terrible by any means for black, but yeah, a nice advantage for white there. So, but queen takes b2 is the real attempt to make white pay for what it's done, and well, Leela certainly takes up the gauntlet now. So knight b5 played, threatening knight c7 check here, which is obviously very dangerous. So black plays the move rook b8. And now, yeah, I mean, the first point, and there's quite a few in this game, where Leela plays something that actually neither Komodo nor Stockfish would play, and also something that Berserk didn't expect either during the game. What Komodo and Stockfish want to do, it's also dangerous, is just to give a check, and then just to go back to b5. And after a6, they're giving up this pawn on a2. and playing knight bd4. And yeah, I mean, what has white got for the 2 pawns? Simply the black king has been stopped from castling, and yeah, white's quite well developed, and well, you're just going to try and get an attack. And I mean, yeah, it's pretty dangerous in actual fact. I mean, this was the type of game we were getting. This is both Stockfish against Dragon, and Dragon against Stockfish. So both of them wanted to play this way. Knight e5 takes, bishop e6 castles. So actually 3 pawns sacrificed. But obviously, yeah, black king in the center, and there's a there's a lot of pressure points and pressure ideas here, all over the place. The only question is, of course, with these, are they actually going to work? Now, when I play black against an engine, then they don't. But yeah, when Stockfish or Komodo have got the white pieces, then things work a little bit better. Rook f8 played, king h1, b5. Not very obvious moves, I have to say. c4, queen a4. Queen e1, b takes c4, it's 4 pawns. Rook a1, queen b5, knight takes f7. Some rather tricky little ideas coming out there. King d7 takes. Bishop f1, king d6, check there. Rook e1, and well, I'd consider that white's attack continues. Yeah, the engine soon agreed to a draw in this position, in actual fact. So consider that the position was about equal, which I guess is probably true. But obviously, very, very, very sharp lines. But I don't really think you have the feeling that black was, completely under massive pressure. Or yeah, it was under big pressure, but not like huge and massive. It was just just dangerous. Whereas, well, when you see what Leela achieves in this game, I mean, you really have the feeling that black's in enormous danger. And c4 was what Leela played. a6, knight c7 check. Berserk was expecting a draw by repetition with rook b1, queen a2, rook a1, but Leela's having none of it. Knight c7, king d8. C takes d5, nice move. King c7, and now the key point of it all, which is d6 check. Surprisingly enough, I mean, normally Komodo Dragon's really cool with the initiative, but in actual fact, in my games, this was on my big hardware, on my 94-thread hardware, then Komodo was going for just for d takes c6, and for example, b takes c6. Rook c1, bishop b4, rook c2 takes, queen d4, bishop e2, knight b6. Which is fine for white, but it's not. It's not really at black's throat here. And yeah, the games were being drawn, pretty quickly, basically from here. But this is not at all Leela's idea. I mean, Leela just wants to play d6 check, king d8, and then bishop e2. And yeah. Quite unusual position. I mean, Leela has sacrificed a full piece, but well, you can certainly tell where the compensation is. I mean, it's these pawns on f4, e5, d6 that actually do a pretty good job of restricting all of black's minor pieces. I mean, first of all, the bishop on f8, bishop on c8, the bishop's blocked in by the pawn on d6, the bishop on c8 by the 2 knights. But also these 2 knights have some difficulty, playing around the white structure. For example, a move like knight b6, we've always got ideas like rook b1, and the knight on b6 can't be protected, and of course, we're covering the f6 square, for example. I mean, as a human player, actually, this would be a horrific sacrifice to face, because it's very difficult to really understand. What am I supposed to be doing here? I'm a piece up. I'm blocked in, but there's no immediate threats coming in. So what should I do? Should I hunker down, just try and get my king over to the king side, and then try and free myself later? Should I be trying to get the queen side free with something like b5, bishop b7, or should I be trying to strike back immediately, and really rough up the white position? Although, yeah, you might want to do that, but it's not very clear how you do that in actual fact. And yeah, I mean, this is really for me, it was very unclear as well. And even after running the initial set of Stockfish Komodo games, I wasn't yeah, there were a lot of points I didn't really understand. So I actually ran a series of 2-hour games between Leela and Stockfish, just to try and understand a little bit more, what is happening, just with some of the things that I thought about that I couldn't really grasp from what Stockfish and Komodo were doing, and that was actually really, really instructive. I mean, first of all, let's have a look at a few little things. I mean, b5 is, quite an obvious move. Let's get this this bishop onto b7, and at least get the pieces developed first of all. And with a light squared bishop on the long diagonal, it might give some counterplay, and then we'll see how to develop the king side later. But actually, this was just one that I put on Stockfish, to analyse. And Stockfish was, already at 4.61 when it gets in a4. The point is that White's entry channels aren't 100% clear, in the original position. When you play a4, yeah, they are, and you're just going to come in. And I mean, Stockfish didn't rush, but we just get queen a4, bishop b3, rook c1, and stuff is already going wrong for black. So yeah, I mean, black can't play a move like b5 if white can still play a4, because you can't give white any easy entry channels into the position. Now the other idea, and this was one that I think actually that Komodo chose it by itself. I don't think that I specified this move to play g6, and the idea is simply that somehow we're going to get these pieces out of the way, run with the king, get it a bit to safety, and then afterwards we're going to try and get free. Actually, this doesn't seem to be good at all, because this is a game Stockfish against Dragon, and actually Stockfish was just able, of course with excellent play, but was just able to keep black completely boxed in. I mean, all of these moves, it's all about stopping black from getting this knight active, and also stopping black from playing b5. I mean, the c-file battery is doing that, and well, it's not easy to finish off by any means, but you just see how the white pieces inexorably get closer and closer. We've even got some possibilities of h4 to h5 later. For the moment, we're just content to stop g6 to g5, and yeah, I mean, the pieces just come in, and it just ends up being just like a complete utter disaster for black. Not easy to do, as white. I will emphasize this, to keep that much control, but Stockfish broke through, and there wasn't a hint of counterplay for Dragon there. So yeah, I mean, essentially I think we can say that this plan of just running with a king and say, okay, well, we'll sort it out later what we do with development, not possible, which kind of makes you think that it's really kind of now or never. If you're going to launch counterplay, you'll find some way to do it now, and otherwise you'll probably never manage. One thing that Leela played that none of the other engines wanted to do, and it looked quite good, or quite decent anyway, was the move knight c5. And yeah, I mean, Leela's sharp idea is just to exchange off the a set of minor pieces, which obviously with black's cramped position you sort of assume would be quite decent. Well, as long as, of course, that you're not weakening the defenses around your king too much. But yeah, hard for a human to play this one, because you've got to get it. It's got to be 100% right. I mean, if there's a clever way, some clever tactical weird way for white to avoid the exchange of minor pieces, then, well, you will just have wasted lots of time, and you'll just have looked really silly. But actually there doesn't seem to be. So this was games that I played between Stockfish and Leela at I mean, it's not super fantastic hardware. I mean, it's 18 threads for Stockfish, quite a powerful CPU, and I've got an RTX 2080 on my laptop. 2080 Super is basically a desktop replacement. But these are 2-hour games, so we get a reasonable number of nodes per game, and well, this is what Leela did with it. So just swap off the dark squared bishops, play f5, and f5's a nice move. I mean, actually this whole combination is quite nice. I mean, f5 takes away e4, also gives the black king a safe square on f7. Getting rid of the dark squared bishop means that the black queen's tremendously safe now. You won't be able to trap it, and the queen can cause some irritation on the dark squares. And it also means that if you go bishop d6, well, you're opening up dark squares in your position, but there's no white dark square bishop to exploit them. So yeah, actually I think, you know, your defensive chances really do improve there. And well, you know, Leela managed to do it. I mean, it always feels incredibly fraught. You know, you wouldn't be surprised either if it turned out to be losing, but you know, when it works, you sort of say, ah, okay, you know, well done. Yeah, somehow managed to push white back, and then at the right moment just was able to break up the pawn structure. And yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, this is still really tricky, and yeah, Stockfish did end up with an advantage of a piece there. But after here takes there bishop f4, Leela managed to reach the sanctuary of a drawn ending. I mean, it's a wrong-coloured bishop for the rook's pawn, and obviously Leela's got 2 pawns for the piece as well. So I mean, this is. But I mean, I think you can see the scale of the challenge, right? I mean, it's really clear that, you know, this sacrifice of Leela's, yeah, it's definitely one that you would want to play against a human opponent. You know, I mean, no doubt at all. What Berserk did was also decent, but yeah, very, very risky. Berserk played the move rook g8. To be honest, this is a move that I would play more from desperation, not necessarily conviction. Yeah, black is actually aiming to play g7 to g5 and really directly trying to challenge this this bind on black's position. Obviously, being a piece up, well, black's happy to sacrifice, for example, the exchange if white goes knight takes g5, just to break up the white pawn center. I mean, it's really one of those, yeah, you know, it's a very Stockfish defense, really, you know, where you're you try and create counterplay and force the opponent to do something before, you know, it's completely ready. And yeah, I mean, you know, when something like this hits you, I mean, we saw in some lines, you know, with black just transferring the king to the king side, you know, white could just afford to castle, put the king to safety, bring the pieces up. There's no rush. When something like this is happening, you know, you really have to start exploiting all of the strengths of your position. You can't just rely on the static strengths, you know, unless the counterplay that black's planning is totally disastrous. You've got to, you know, look at the dynamic strengths that you've got. And one very, very impressive thing here is that Leela really starts now to weave in this slightly precarious position of the black queen into its whole plan. And it's very reminiscent. There's a great example in the Caro-Kann in the Silicon Road to Chess Improvement. It's an AlphaZero Stockfish game, and you know, AlphaZero sacrifices 2 pawns on the queen side, and you can't really see, you know, okay, there's compensation, but it doesn't look like so much. But black's queen, Stockfish's queen, had taken a couple of pawns on the queen side, and Leela just weaves that element into its you know, next 5 or 6 moves, and actually somehow manages to get its queen and its rooks onto fantastic active posts all the time, whilst threatening to trap the opponent's queen. And it just means that then when AlphaZero started its attack, all of its pieces were perfect and ready not only for the first wave of attack, but the waves after that. And what Leela does here, you know, is really reminiscent of that. So now, yeah, originally Leela was looking at h4. That was the move in its PV, which is, you know, quite reasonable to stop g7 to g5. But when it got to the position, it found something cleverer, and it played rook b1. And now probably, I think you can say, the decisive mistake. Although obviously, well, you're going to see the skill that's required to exploit it. But Berserk played queen a3. And I mean, what's the point here? Well, I mean, we've talked about how Leela is going to try and trap the black queen, or at least threaten to trap the black queen to win tempi. And I mean, obviously Berserk's seeing a lot of these lines as well. And it looks like Berserk just decided, well, you know, if I take the pawn on a2 here, then I'm just giving white an extra a file to attack the queen. So you know, let's just play queen a3. And you keep in touch with the queen c5, and you know, I could always take the pawn a2, but for the moment it's going to be more tricky for white to get at that queen. And it's not stupid. I mean, it's really perfectly reasonable. Only, yeah, you know, Leela spots a rather unpleasant little point, rather a negative side effect of rook g8. And, well, this actually ends up making life impossible for Berserk. I mean, the best line that black had was to play after rook b1, to play queen takes a2. And what is the point of it? Actually, it's one of those things. I mean, there's a great player called Znosko Borowski, or great player, but he wrote, he was a good player of his time, as in the 1900s, and wrote some interesting books. But he made the theory that, you know, if your queen goes wild grabbing stuff, then you shouldn't try and retreat it. You should try and leave it where it is, where it interferes with the opponent's pieces to the maximum degree. And that's always, yeah, resonated with me. I think it's a really, you know, it's a really good observation. And here, in actual fact, queen takes a2 is a good move. First of all, it stops the white queen from going to c2. It restricts the activity of the white queen. And secondly, it's removed this undermining a2, a4. So, for example, if white plays slowly with a move like h4, then we can just go b5 and play bishop b7, because there's no undermining a2 to a4. So, yeah, I mean, after that, you know, the engines just think that the position's just equal. So what Leela was looking at had a huge PV, and, well, actually, it looks like it's just best play according to Stockfish as well and everything, because I had a number of games that followed Leela's PV up to about move 35. So quite amazing, really. You know, it's so castles, g5, queen c1. So here we are. We're starting to weave in the precarious position of the black queen into white's play, because if you go g takes f4, I've got bishop c4, queen a4, and rook a1, trapping the queen. So queen d5, bishop c4, queen e4, rook e1, queen f5, fg. And yeah, one nice, gorgeous point here is that if you go knight e5 takes, you know, important to see how to get the bishop off the c file so that we can give a queen c7 check. And bishop takes c6 is best. I mean, that's not so so crazy. It's just that the one defensive resource that that black has got is quite amazing, which is queen f2 check. With the idea of king takes knight d3, but it doesn't turn out to be that good, because we go bishop a5 check, b6, rook b6, and we've just got, yeah, you know, all manner of discovered checks, attacks, and everything on the black king, and this knight on c1 is hanging as well. So what have we got here? After bishop g7, we got rook b3. Knight e5, rook takes e5, bishop e5, bishop d3. This queen again getting into trouble. If queen g4, we've just got, I think it's knight takes e5 here. So, actually even, sorry, I just got a bit distracted. I think rook b4 even is quite nice. Because if knight takes b4, we've got queen c7 check, followed by queen e7. So, but after bishop d3, there's bishop takes h2 check. Queen d5, black keeps on hanging on, bishop c4, bishop f4, e5, rook d3, and you really think, wow, come on, this must be winning for white. But yeah, king g1 was Leela's PV, a little bit mysterious. In my engine games, queen f4 was played, but funnily enough, after takes, g6, queen d6, bishop d7, knight g5, king c8. Actually, these games just ended up being drawn. Yeah, I mean, the black king looks really awkward, but somehow the white pieces find it hard to get at it. And of course, you know, there's two rooks. So, yeah, I mean, very, very interesting. You know, just Leela calculated all of this and saw that that this was probably, you know, enough to draw, but I mean, really difficult to see. But yeah, I mean, taking that pawn stops the white queen from getting active on c2, and also allows b7 to b5, you know, so not bad at all. However, after queen a3, Leela played h4, and basically what Leela's saying now is, fine, you've got, you can't free yourself now, so I'm just going to stop all of your counterplay on the king side. And why can't black free itself? Well, the point is that if you go b5, I can play queen c2, hitting c6 and h7. And yeah, I mean, queen h7 is a really unpleasant threat because that rook on g8 is being lost. So yeah, I mean, that's like really bad. And you know, I mean, if you go something like h6 to try and make g5, I mean, I still go queen c2 and threaten queen h7. You know, so that's also really difficult. And if you go g5, then actually surprised me slightly, but what Stockfish is going for is rook h7. And there's one lovely line, for example, you go g4, I go rook f7, takes queen h7. Obviously a lot of threats coming in here. Rook g2 takes, rook d2, and now the simple win is takes, queen c7, and bishop h5 check, which is going to lead to mate. So what you can see there is that this move, queen a3, after h4, it basically means that black is not going to get in g5 quickly. So white's going to have plenty of time to, get its position all sorted out. By the time black gets in g5, it's white's going to be beautifully prepared, and this is really what happens in the game. So we get castles, g6, and now after g6, stopping queen c2, because after b5 we can still go queen c2, because if you go check now, which is one of the nice points of queen a3, we just go rook fc1 and we're winning a piece. Sometimes you don't need to mate, you can just win a piece as well, and that would be huge. And of course, white wins the piece, and then, well, the black bishop on f8 is still completely blocked in. This rook on g8 can't get active, so yeah, it's just really completely hopeless. But after castles, g6, black is actually sort of threatening b5, so then we go rook c1, again stopping black from playing b7 to b5. Yeah, I mean, I was wondering about knight b6 here, because, well, you always look for things, if white plays a move that doesn't protect something, can you use that square? And, well, rook b1 to c1 stops covering b6, so knight b6 felt nice and opportunistic, but yeah, it's still just really difficult. It's hard for humans to continually visualize this, but yeah, I mean, it really is true. So if queen c1, if you go knight d5, I just go rook a3, and I've trapped the queen. So actually, you've got your knight on b6, but you're never going to get it to d5. Eventually, that knight's going to get pushed back to d7. So very, very hard now for black to defend. So, I mean, now you're into only engines can possibly make any go of defending this, because it doesn't make any sense now for black. I mean, you've played rook g8, which doesn't make any sense. You've gone queen a3 takes a2. You've wasted all this time. What are you doing? Yeah, just very, very hard to explain it, really. It's just completely survival, and of course, the ones that do that the best are engines. So rook c2, queen d5, queen c1. Why queen c1? Well, we've seen this already. We're playing the rook on the open file, stopping black from playing b7 to b5 by targeting this knight. h6, finally, Berserk, after rook d1, plays g5, but yeah, the point is, of course, if you played it on move 17, well, white wasn't even castled yet in some lines, whereas now, look at this, we've got the queen on c2, the rook on d1, and our king is castled as well. I mean, actually, already by this point, there are multiple ways of doing it. I mean, Stockfish liked rook e1, and Dragon liked bishop e3, but they were all winning games from themselves, so... I mean, I think already, from an engine point of view, it's lost already. But after g5, hg, bishop e3, queen a5, knight takes g5. So, yeah, I mean, now if black doesn't do anything, I mean, white's just going to go knight e4, and yeah, actually, Dragon was just following up with g4 and g5 and just getting a total bind over the black position. But rook g5, I mean, is the only logical thing to do here. And there are many ways to finish this off. Leela chose yeah, a very nice complete constriction manner. So we played bishop h5, attacking this weak pawn on f7. Yeah, if you go bishop d6, then we're taking, going rook f2, hitting the pawn on f7. I mean, yeah, it's again one of those things. Black's a piece up here, but a piece and 2 pawns up. But yeah, it's just very tough to get free. This was Dragon as black, trying to just to give up a pawn and get free, but we just you just see Stockfish taking all of its time and then pushing the g pawn, and that just ends up being enough. There's no threats to the white king, and well, the black king, everywhere you go, the black king's always in trouble. So yeah, I mean, so Berserk played didn't take on d6, played queen h8, g4, just hammering in that that bishop on h5. rook f2 and bishop b6, and this is quite gorgeous, really. I mean, it's the bishops just hammering into the black position, just completely paralyzing black. Rook c8, queen e3, knight d8, rook f6, and yeah, I mean, this is absolutely absolutely wonderful for white, of course. It's just a matter, really, of when does the position collapse for black. And so yeah, I mean, I'll just show you a few more moves of the game, really, because yeah, Leela just sort of just took the nice slow approach, which is fine and lovely. But I mean, I would have loved to finish this with a nice combination. But actually, Leela just went for slow and gradual suffocation, gradually picking up pawns as Berserk gave them away to try and stave off defeat. But yeah, just swapped off like this, and then just moved in with all the pieces there. Bishop c3, bishop e2, king g4, bishop b5, king c8, bishop a5, bishop b6. Just picking up pawns and eventually winning. I'm pretty sure there was a quicker way of doing it, but yeah, Leela just won this very comfortably in the end. But yeah, I mean, I thought this was an absolutely wonderful game. I think from the opening line, where Leela plays something different, just to avoid going into this long forcing line, that it's already at move 3 or 4, it's already evaluating perfectly. I mean, quite incredible. And then the way that it sacked material. I mean, what Komodo and Stockfish did, sacking 2 pawns, was dangerous, but Leela went all the way with a piece sacrifice, and yeah, just assessed this brilliantly. I guess in terms of the chances, and also in terms of Black's best defenses. And then, well, I mean, it just took me a lot of analysis to understand what was happening here. The idea that yeah, Black can't free itself on the queen side because we can undermine it, create new entry channels. But if Black just sits and waits and just tries to get its king safe, and only then think about development, it just ends up being completely constricted. So there's a real need to get counterplay now, and well, yeah, I mean, either Leela's knight c5 or Stockfish's and Berserk's rook g8 are fine, but yeah, this little moment here where Black had to play super risky in order to make sure that this move g5 came in. And the key point about playing super risky is that you restrict the activity of the opponent's queen. That's the key point. And yeah, so Leela spotting that, and then after Berserk, Leela just switching over really to just a restraining mode, and suddenly it becomes clear that because the white queen is freer and there's always this tempo against the pawn in h7, it just becomes impossible for Black to free itself, which is really, really impressive, and I thought what was really nice was how this this theme that I'd already described quite in some depth in the Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, the idea of using the opponent's queen, the queen that's taken a couple of hot pawns, to weave that into the way that you marshal your forces so that they get into good positions whilst gaining time. I mean, that's it's lovely to see this theme again, because I'd only really seen it in AlphaZero's games in such a way, and Leela does it exactly the same, and just as powerful, but actually this time a piece down, not just 2 pawns down. And yeah, this was really, I thought this was really nice. And yeah, then you see what has happened there, that with Leela using all of those tempi to get its pieces into great shape, by the time the counterplayer arises, yeah, White's position is so much better that Black doesn't have any chance. But and in all of these lines again, it's always the Black queen that's getting hit in order to give White extra tempi. Really, really impressive game by Leela, and yeah, I mean, it was also a game where yeah, you felt that Leela was actually ahead of all the other engines there, because although you know, when you gave them Leela's moves, they appreciated then, you know, how strong they were. I think out of themselves, it was really only Leela that was, you know, consistently finding all these amazing moves, and you know, and really getting, you know, to this sort of point. So yeah, so really cool, really cool game, and yeah, loved that that chess bonus, you know, trying the engines out from the opening position. I'd really expected that there would be so many draws, and I was quite amazingly impressed, you know, at how the top engines, you know, were managing to make something of you know, just a slight advantage that they have from the opening position, and you know, it was really good. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that. A little bit longer, but I hope you agree it was worth it. If you like the video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, and otherwise, you know, thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you at the next video.